First of all, I wasn't born into a Baha'i family. I was raised Irish Catholic, very Irish at that time. We were still a bit of a ghetto in the city of Toronto. And I could say the whole Mass in Latin. All my education was in Catholic schools, until I went to university. And I happened to come across the Baha'i Faith in university, and that's 43 years ago, almost 44. So that's how it started. But I did have a fairly strong, if you want, immersion in Catholic doctrine and philosophy, etc. So that was my background. Now, when we approach prophecy, there are a couple of things we should set out at the very beginning. One is, every religious system, the major revealed religions, they all have what is called a prophetic tradition. And that is, they are told in advance of things that are going to happen sometime down the corridor of time, of history. But there's a terrible irony in religious history. Every time that a messenger has come, even though we said we wanted it, we expected it, we prayed for it, but when it happened, we didn't want it anymore. If you look at what they did to Jesus, okay? So prophecy is not a guarantee that people are going to be ready. And we're going to start with a quote of Baha'u'llah, who's the founder of the Baha'i Faith. Because remember, Baha'is believe that we have seen the second coming of Christ. It's already happened. And if you look at the changes in the world, there are ways, most people know something is very different today. It's unlike any other period in history. Baha'u'llah says that revelation is itself a test of the sincere. Okay. Now, I use my own background as an example. When I first investigated the Baha'i Faith, I learned about what we call the social teachings. There are 12 principles: equality of women, harmony of science and religion, the abolition of extreme wealth and poverty, universal compulsory education, and it goes on. They made sense to me. They were just logical. Okay. Now, this is 42 years ago. I had to defend the principle of equality of women, even in a university environment. But when a manifestation comes, it's like an electrical charge. Okay, this impulse goes into the world, and not simply in the religious community that he founds, but in the whole world around. So, for example, the suffragettes march, the kindness to animals, the peace movement, this is worldwide. We do not have in the Baha'i Faith this notion that there is a Baha'i community and everybody else. We believe that there's one humanity within which the Baha'i community exists, and its responsibility, its privilege, if you want, is to promote the teachings of Baha'u'llah and make people aware, without feeling better than or superior or anything else. So, now we go back to prophecy. In spite of the fact that we wanted it, we rejected it. Why is that? Well, in my case, for example, I agreed with the teachings. They were very, very logical. But when it came to a certain point, the professor, we had him down for lunch once after the course was over, and he said to me, "So what do you think of Baha'u'llah?" And I can tell you to this day, I know exactly how I felt. Not thought, felt. I was really disturbed. Because here I was, steeped in a 2,000-year-old tradition. I was very comfortable. I would say the Mass, as I said, etc., etc. In my background, you were born a Catholic, you died a Catholic. Well, when you think of that, it's a little silly. In one sense, when the manifestation reappears, and they're all the same reality, remember, they come from the same source. When they reappear, there are certain challenges that believers have. One is tradition, okay? One is loyalty to a name, okay? Even though we've had certain very definite statements, they shall be known by a new name, okay? So, but that was the one question that I needed, because having heard that question, I could back up and say, well, wait a minute, what about Baha'u'llah? And in doing that, I was able to focus on the reality of the manifestation rather than simply agreeing with the teachings, because a lot of people agree with the teachings. But that's just the bare bones. That's just the surface of what this revelation is about. So let's look at prophecy for a moment, okay? It is a test, okay? There are a number of problems that emerge when you're looking at prophecies. It's not what the messenger said. Let's put this on the table, because there's one book that Jesus gave us, the Bible. Now, yes, you have the Catholic Bible and the King James, and you have the vernacular and the New Age, etc. But that isn't the problem. There's not that much difference in what they say. The problem is in the interpretation. Okay? So we went from, and no faith has retained its unity, okay, past a certain point. We went from one Christ, one book, to 3,000 churches. How did we do that? Well, we did that because not that we had a different saying or different writing, but we interpreted it differently. Or we tended to emphasize one teaching over another. So, for example, I'll give you one case. There is a belief in some segments of Christianity that you're saved by faith alone. That's one view. The other view is you're saved by faith and good works. Well, how do you decide which one of those is true? Because you have people on both sides who will defend their positions. Well, you go to the writings of Christ, where he said, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom, but those who love me and keep my commandments. Now, the commandments can be seen in the Sermon on the Mount, as well as the Ten Commandments, which are carried over. They weren't changed. The Sermon on the Mount, we are our brother's keeper. So this notion that I am here just for myself is not true, and has never been true. We are here for each other. So, excuse me, we are given certain prophecies for a couple of reasons. One, if you look at the prophecies of Isaiah, of Daniel in the Old Testament, these were prophecies, by the way, and in Islam as well. These were prophecies which gave people an indication of the circumstances that would exist when the manifestation reappeared. The 12th Imam, the Qayyim, the second coming of Christ, the Lord of hosts, okay? These were prophecies that described the world situation. Now, we'll deal with one in particular. They asked Jesus, when shall these things be? He was talking about his return. He said, the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give its light, the stars shall fall from heaven, then shall the Son of Man come in the clouds of glory. Now, immediately we have a challenge. How do we understand this? Why did he use sun, moon, and stars? Is he talking about the literal sun, moon, and stars? Or are these figurative? Are these symbols? Well, obviously, logically, we would suggest that this is figurative language. It is symbolic. You cannot have the stars fall from heaven. The stars are fixed, okay? The sun, if the sun were to not stop giving its light, the existence would stop, because we need sunshine to grow. Now, the sun, okay, is the faith itself. It's the revelation, okay? The moon is the laws. And the stars are the leaders of religion. Who lose authority, they lose power. Now, we need to define something very clearly. In every faith, there is a certain authority, first to the manifestation himself, and then to whatever structure that he sets up. Okay? Now, we're not talking about the authority to interpret. That is something quite different. We didn't have that until this age, and there's a reason for that. We'll deal with it later. But that authority, okay, has a time. For everything, as the good book says, for everything under the heavens, there is a season, okay, and a time. For everything there is a season and a time under the heavens. That means that for everything, in terms of the life of humanity as it develops or evolves, institutions, faith systems, nothing is forever. We evolve, we continue to progress, and God addresses us according to the needs and capacity of the age. As Jesus said, there are many things I have yet to tell you which you could not bear, which means you're not ready for them. But when he who is the Spirit of truth has come, he shall guide you unto all knowledge. In Islam, there's a tradition, if all knowledge is represented by 27 letters, all that has been revealed up to and including Muhammad is 2. When the Qaim comes, he will release the remaining 25 letters of knowledge. Now, look at the growth of not only science and technology, starting in the 19th century, or a little even before. It's the dawn, which is just the time before the sunrise. But in terms of human rights, the 20th century, for all its wars, was the most enlightened century we've seen. Women got the vote. The abolition of, not simply the abolition of slavery, that happened in the 19th century, but the civil rights movement didn't come to fruition until 1964. The Civil Rights Act, etc., etc. So it was a great age. Now, if you go back to the books of the Jewish prophets, the minor prophets of the house of Israel, they give us certain inklings, okay? They had 2 prophecies in Judaism. One concerned Messiah, and one concerned the Lord of hosts. Now, Jesus is Messiah. But the Lord of hosts, if you look at the description, the characteristics of the Lord of hosts, they're quite different. He is the lawgiver, the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings. On his shoulders shall sit the government, and he shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, and all nations shall flow to him. Okay? That's not the same as Christ, I come not to bring peace but a sword. Okay? We have categorical evidence from all of them that there is an expectation, this prophetic tradition that I referred to earlier. I'm just going to list the name of the figure identified in the world's great religious traditions.